Hi, I'm Charles Freeborn. I'm a guitar maker in the beautiful town of Portland, Oregon. My wife and I moved here about 11 years ago to escape the hustle and bustle of the San Francisco Bay Area, and we've loved every minute of it. It's also been a real treat to get plugged into the musical and luthier scene here in the Northwest. There's a lot going on. There's always fabulous live music taking place, and we have a very vibrant community of builders that gathers together, and we exchange ideas and have our own little shows up here. They're largely locally based. Lots going on. It's really fun, and it's a great place to learn the skill and the craft and the trade. So I built my first guitars when I was just a kid, only 12 or 13 years old. It was the 70s, and if you wanted to be in a band, you had to have something that made noise, and a guitar was the quickest and easiest way to get there. I didn't have very much money. I come from a big family, so I worked after school and on weekends as a stock boy in a music store. It was a fun time there. There were a lot of interesting customers, including George Thorogood, who wasn't yet famous, but we all knew he was going places. I managed to get a couple of lessons off of him. I should add he's a really nice guy. So I would hang out in the repair department, and all the cast-off parts that would come off of guitars that were in for repair, I'd scoop them out of the trash can, and I'd take them home and see if I could make them work. I would saw bodies out of solid slabs of wood with a coping saw, and I'd cut the pickup cavities with a hammer and a chisel. They were pretty crude, but they worked. And it was kind of the beginnings of my learning how to do this thing we call guitar making. So then life moved on, and I ended up getting jobs as carpenters first, and then cabinet maker, and then into very fine, high-end fine furniture making. All along, I always kind of had a peripheral thing going on with guitars, and I built a few over the years, but about 15 years ago, I got really serious about it and started building acoustics. I love acoustic music, especially acoustic blues and ragtime, and so that was something that was the draw for me, and I went and started playing again and started building again, and it's really been a fun ride. So I have a great appreciation for traditional constructions and methods, although I don't feel constricted or limited to them. That's been a little bit of an uphill battle for me because a lot of my designs are different. I build asymmetrical shaped bodies, and I have a lot of very unusual looking things, but when you look under the hood, they're actually very normally traditionally built. I don't feel the need to reinvent every single wheel. I just want to improve it where I can. So my freestyle guitar is a full 16-inch lower bout instrument. The asymmetrical body shape just moves some of that lower bout out from underneath your arm and makes it easier on your shoulder to play for long periods of time. When you pick the guitar up, it feels like a small guitar, but once you start to play it, it sounds like a big guitar. It's got a big, full, rich sound as it's a fairly large sound box. I also build traditional instruments. The one traditional bodied instrument that I've always liked was the Martin Quadruple O, or they were called M38s or M36s. Martin built them in kind of a bad time for the factory. It was the 80s. They were in trouble. Quality was down. Sales were down. So it was a very short-lived instrument, but I always felt it was a really good one. It's a lot like a triple O or an OM, but with a 16-inch bout. It's a larger-bodied guitar. Really versatile. Works very well for fingerstyle or playing with a pick. I build it in two sizes. I build the same size that Martin did, same scale length, same body size. And then I build what I call the petite model, which is just that same design made 1 inch smaller, 15-inch lower bout. So a lot of people would say, well, that's just an OM, and okay, maybe it is. But I build it with a 13 fret clear of the body. I use a slightly different scale length. It's a little bit longer than a triple O, a little bit shorter than a dreadnought. It's a lovely little instrument. Turned out to be one of my favorite traditionally styled guitars. I also put what I call the hybrid headstock on a lot of my guitars. And some people think it's a gimmick. It's got 3 regular paddle style tuners and 3 slot head tuners. It's not a gimmick. It really actually has a practical purpose. When you're playing the guitar, when the guitar's up in playing position, the 3 lower rows of tuners are facing you. I've been very lucky to make friends with some incredibly talented professional musicians. And if you watch these guys play, if their guitar or even just 1 or 2 strings goes a little bit out of tune in the middle of a song, they'll reach over and correct it. So that hybrid headstock makes it easier for them to reach those tuners on the fly. It also is pretty darn cool. I'm sorry, but that's just one of the aesthetics that I actually appreciate. The only other traditional styled instrument that I build is my version of the venerable Gibson L00. The L00 was pretty much the bottom of the line for the Gibson lineup. That's why it was so popular with blues musicians and ragtime musicians, is it was a very cheap guitar. They built them very fast. Very few of them survived because they were never really taken very good care of, and they were very roughly constructed. Some say that the construction methods have a lot to do with the raspy kind of sound that they make, and I actually think that's probably true. The inside of an L00 is pretty rough. They used rough sawn bracing. It was just a knife shape. There was no scalloping. They had a lot of glue run out all over the place inside of them, and they were really not a very elegant instrument. They also varied a lot. There was not a lot of quality control. Some of them had thinner tops, some thicker tops. It really depended upon who was building it. And if you were lucky, you got a good one. And there's a lot of them out there that really just didn't sound that good, and that's probably why a lot of them didn't survive. I was very fortunate to have a look inside a good one, a genuine 1930s era one that was a lovely instrument. And then another friend of mine here in town and I, we copied it and we studied it, and that's the way I build them. Don't be fooled by my oval sound hole and some of the other contemporary flourishes I put on mine. It's a real old school L00 inside, and it's a great little blues ragtime guitar. This is one here on the bench right now that I'm just doing some setup work on. They're really fun little guitars. They're light, they're loud, they're kind of raspy and barky when they're done right, and that's what I look for in mine. I don't get real fussy with them. I build them with the same methods, the rough sawn bracing and the same bracing pattern that they used in the 1930s. They're really fun little guitars to play. They're not elegant at all, but that's what the blues is all about. Thanks for listening and watching. I really appreciate your taking your time to have this glimpse into my shop and the way I do things. It's been a really fun journey, which I really hope is going to go on for a lot longer, and I look forward to meeting you at a guitar show, or just give me a shout. You can see my work on my website, freebornguitars.com, and if you follow the links to my shop, you'll see some in-progress pieces, you'll see some of the wood selections that I make, and you'll get a little bit better idea of how I do what I do. Thanks, and take care. Look forward to talking to you soon.